Hello everybody and welcome back to M&J Games. I am Michael, and today what we are doing is we're looking at my projected bracket for the NCAA tournament that is going to be announced, or the field's going to be announced today. But as of me recording this is Saturday night, right as the Long Beach State and the Cal State Fullerton game went to halftime. So what I'm creating here is not taking into account any of the championship games happening tomorrow or the end of that game. And so as you can see, this is my true seed list in terms of how I rank the teams 1 through 68, with the lowest team being Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and then Bryant, Norfolk State, and Texas Southern would be my playing games, which Texas Southern is a strange one because they won at Florida, but their net is so low because of the conference they play in, and they lost their first 7 games to start the year. So it's really kind of an interesting dynamic. As you can see, the last 4 byes: Miami, Iowa State, Indiana, Wyoming. But if you look up here on the true seed list, Indiana, as you can see right here, we got Indiana, but then you've got Virginia Tech in between those, and that's because obviously Virginia Tech won tonight, so they got the automatic bid. So I think they're a little bit behind Indiana right now, but obviously they're not in a potential of being a last 4 in or anything like that. Same thing with Loyola Chicago. And then the last 4 in, I've got Michigan, Rutgers. I really don't think Rutgers should be in with a couple of the losses they have, but I just kind of feel like the committee is really going to value their wins. But to me, it's going to kind of set a bad precedent with the fact that they're going to have a 78 in the net, and they're going to be able to get in the tournament. That to me is pretty crazy. And now Wake Forest and Texas A&M. And A&M's the last team in, and some of this could change tomorrow depending on obviously what happens with some of the championship games. But Wake Forest is one of those teams that there's just not a ton of strong bubble teams this year. And what I mean by that is so many of the bubble teams, you can poke holes in their resume, and Wake Forest's hole that you can poke is that, yes, they've got a good overall record, but they've played 18 games against quad 3 and quad 4, I believe. Actually, I think it's even more than that now that I think about it. And then, like, Notre Dame, for example, has played only 9 games, or they're 4-9 in quads 1 and 2. So let's look at, and this is a website called warrennolan.com that's got a lot of really good net stuff. And so if we find Wake Forest down here, where's Wake Forest at? Why can't I find them right now? There we are, 45. So yeah, they've played 20 quad 3 and quad 4 games, and they've lost 2 of them. So Wake's only 5-7 in quads 1 and 2, which is pretty questionable. But I've still got them slotted a little bit ahead of Notre Dame. And so based on the championship games tomorrow, I don't think these can really flip-flop because Tennessee beating A&M is not really going to add much to their resume. So I think these have been pretty cemented here. I think if Purdue loses, Villanova might be able to slide up, but it kind of depends on how they lose, in my opinion. But I do think Purdue will win just because Iowa, I think they're pretty locked in where they're at right now. They're honestly kind of lucky to be in that spot because if you look at Iowa's resume, look, their net's pretty good, but they're only 3-6 in quad 1. So if you look at all the other teams that are even in this area of the net ranking, all of them have much better resumes in terms of wins against the quadrant 1 than Iowa does. I mean, Texas 5-10. Okay, that one's not great. 5-6 is a lot better. 6-9 is definitely better. 4-7, not really, but that's St. Mary's. So it's kind of one of those where there's a lot you can poke holes in with Iowa's lack of overall quality wins. Because if we click on Iowa, and this is one thing you can do, is it pulls up all of their games. And so you can see here, these are quad 1 games that they lost. So their only quad 1 wins at Maryland's not even quad 1. So you've got at Michigan's 1. Then you've got Michigan State's not quad 1 because 36 in the net doesn't mean that's a quad 1 game at home. At Ohio State. and then the one today against Indiana. So they've definitely got holes you can poke in their schedule. They are playing really well, though, but I don't really think they can move up at all where they're at. The interesting one would be Davidson. If Davidson loses, one of these teams gets knocked out, because that would mean that Richmond would be put in the field. And then I don't really think Houston or Memphis can really move much from where they're at. So I think basically the committee going into all the games on Sunday is basically going to have everything pretty set up. Now, Princeton, I think I need to look at, I think it's Yale they're playing, if I remember correctly. So I haven't really looked too much at Yale, so I don't really know where they would slot in. But yeah, so here's how the teams look, and then now let's go ahead and look at the bracket and project the games. So one thing I did with each team here is I wrote out the true seed ranking, meaning the true number of where their team's at. And so what the committee does when they place teams is they do they place the first four, and then they determine that as the regions. And then they go through and say, all right, so Kentucky's the overall number 2. They want to be in the Midwest. Kentucky goes to the Midwest. Auburn wants to be in the South. Duke wants to be in the East. And then Purdue wants to be in the West. They do the same thing. But with the 3 seeds, since Villanova is the overall 3 seed, they want to be in the East. And then Tennessee would want to be in the Midwest, but the issue there is you've already got an SEC team in the Midwest. And so what the rules say with the committee is that for the top 4 teams from a conference that are on the top 4 seed line, they have to be placed in different regions. So Tennessee can't be here because we've already got Villanova in this region, which would make more sense for them. So they've got to go out west. They've got to be shipped out west, which, sorry, Tennessee fans, I know that's annoying, but that's how the rule works. So, and then you've got, where am I looking at? Oh, I've already done, I can't see. Oh, 3 seed. There we go. Wisconsin's going to be in the Midwest because Texas Tech wants to be in the South. And then for 4 seeds, Arkansas has to be placed in this East region because, same thing we talked about, you've already got 3 SEC teams in the other 3 regions, so they have to be placed in this region. So they're probably going to go up against Baylor again. So stinks for Arkansas, but that's the way it kind of worked out. And then the other 4 seeds, you got UCLA going to the West. We got Providence going to the Midwest. And then we have Illinois in the South. Now, what these numbers are here is once they place the top 4 seeds, they add up their true seed number, and they want these to be within, I believe it was like 3 to 4 points. And so as you can see, this actually worked out really, really well, where these would be considered the 2 easiest regions, and these would be considered the 2 toughest. Because the higher the number is, that means the higher the true seed of the teams. And then you just go back through and do the S-curve, and also after that, you then decide the locations of each pod. And so the reason why Arkansas's got to go to Buffalo is because when they were left, all that was left was Buffalo here, and then Portland, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Portland. So they basically had to decide between Buffalo and Portland. So if you're a 4 seed, you really kind of don't get to pick a place that's closest to you most of the time. UCLA worked out perfect for them because there's just not as many teams to make the tournament that are on the West Coast. So most teams aren't going to choose that pod. And then another thing to be aware of as we go through is when you're looking at the playing games, you got to have one playing game in terms of your 12 seed. Don't worry about these down here. I haven't changed that because I've actually typed them in here in terms of your last 4 at large and your lowest 4 automatic bids that play. One of each has to be on Thursday, one of each has to be on Friday. And I almost made the mistake of making both of these playing games on Thursday. I mean, that's just because of how the schedule works. So let's go ahead and talk through this. You know, no question, we're going Gonzaga on this first one. Second one, I'm going to go Colorado State. I think TCU is playing, I mean, they've got a fairly good team. They really rebound the ball, but I like this Colorado State team, and I think that could be a pretty fun matchup with Gonzaga. Now, this is my first upset pick. I'm not a huge fan of Houston. I think the I can't speak. The AAC is just a crummy conference this year. Then I just don't like. I think UAB is phenomenal with that point guard they've got. They got two guys that can really shoot, so I would go UAB in that upset over Houston. Here's another team that could potentially get upset. I like New Mexico State's pretty good, but I'm going to overall go UCLA. Then we have Texas, Indiana. Indiana's playing really well. I think Trace Jackson Davis is a problem, and I just think Texas isn't playing great right now. Then we got Tennessee and Longwood. Great story for Longwood. Tennessee is just too much defensively. Seton Hall, Iowa State. Iowa State's not playing well. They can't score. Now, it could be a scenario where they get out of the Big 12 because they're technically undefeated outside of the Big 12. So they get out of the Big 12 and they're able to play with some teams. But I just think Seton Hall overall is just a better team. Then we got Purdue and Delaware. Great story for Delaware. Jameer Nelson's kid playing on the team, which I'm not that old, but it's pretty crazy to think about watching Jameer Nelson for St. Joe's when I was 14, back in 2004, I believe, and now his kid's playing. Really, really weird to think about. Now, Baylor and Wright State, obviously going Baylor. Actually, you know what? Let's go up here and finish up this region first. So Gonzaga, Colorado State. Gonzaga's got too much. This should be a fun game, though. UCLA, UAB. I think usually with these Cinderellas, like with these upset bids, you really only see them go, you only see them win one game. Every once in a while they will win two, but it's kind of tough in a bracket to choose them to win two. And then here, I think a rematch from last year. I don't think UCLA is as good as last year for some reason, even though they returned basically everybody. So I'm going Gonzaga there. Indiana, Tennessee. Tennessee's defense is just going to be too much, so I think Tennessee will advance there. I think Seton Hall could give Purdue some trouble because Purdue can really struggle on the defensive end, but ultimately I think Purdue moves on. So then we got Purdue and Tennessee, and this is going to be an interesting one because Tennessee can struggle on the offensive end sometimes, whereas Purdue struggles on the defensive end. So which one's ultimately going to play out? And I think Purdue's defense is better than Tennessee's offense, if that makes sense. And so I'm going to go Purdue, but that would not surprise me if Tennessee won that game. And then here, Gonzaga, Purdue. I mean, Purdue won't be able to stop Gonzaga, plain and simple. Edey and Williamson may give Timmy some problems, but their defense is just so bad that Gonzaga's going to move on. So now we got UNC San Diego State. I think UNC's playing pretty well, and UNC could give Baylor some issues. So that would be an interesting matchup to see because Baylor's lacking depth in their front court. Or not front court. I always get those terms confused sometimes, but they're lacking low post depth due to Chama Chachua being hurt and out for the year. So we'll see with that. UConn versus Michigan Wake. I like UConn. I think they're pretty strong right now. Arkansas, Akron. This is going to be a scary one for Arkansas. I think Akron can really shoot the ball, but I think ultimately Arkansas will move on. Then we got Murray State and Loyola Chicago. I'm going Murray State. I think this team is talented. They're going to be fun to watch. And then Villanova Colgate. So this is going to be some potential tough matchups for Villanova because Colgate can shoot the ball. So they're kind of like mirror images of each other in terms of how they want to play, which is why I give the edge to Villanova there. Colgate's going to be a fun team to watch, though, so look out for that one. I'm going Miami. LSU's got too much going on with Will Wade being let go today, so I think Miami is just going to be able to squeak by in that game. And then we got Duke, Jacksonville State, going Duke. So then we got Baylor, UNC. I do think Baylor will win, but it's probably going to be one of those where Baylor fans are sweating it out and UNC makes it close with their rebounding ability and stuff like that. But I do think Baylor advances. And UConn, Arkansas, this one's a toss-up to me because both these teams are good. Both these teams have flaws. But I think ultimately J.D. Notte and Arkansas find a way to advance to have a rematch of last year's Elite Eight. That'd be pretty interesting, having a couple rematches from last year in the Sweet 16. So now we got Murray State, Villanova. Villanova's playing pretty well right now, but it's interesting because their defense is playing a lot better because they're really not shooting the three ball that well right now, which is their specialty. And I'm going to go Villanova. It's tough to go against Jay Wright in the tournament to at least get to the Sweet 16 because I think there's only been 1 year I can remember, maybe two, that they've been upset before the Sweet 16. And then we got Miami and Duke. Actually, you know what? I just realized I made a mistake on this because since these two teams played 2 times in the regular season. They cannot meet until the Sweet 16. So that is my mistake on this. But we'll go Duke. So that's actually, you know what, for the sake of this, let's go ahead and we could trade out Davidson in Miami. So that is my fault, guys. I apologize. So let's go here. We'll go Davidson, which was the 38th. And I still think Davidson would be able to get by LSU. Then Miami was the 39th. So I apologize for that mistake, but let's go here. Let's go Davidson and then Duke. Davidson Duke would be fun. I think those were the 2 teams that played when Steph Curry lost in the Elite Eight. I could be wrong though. That was back in the day. And then now at Baylor Arkansas. Baylor's got a lot of injuries, but I think Baylor overall plays more consistent. I know Arkansas has been on a hot stretch, but most of that's been at home. And J.D. Note has not been playing well in the past 3 to 4 games in terms of his shooting efficiency. And Arkansas just flat out can't shoot the basketball. Like, they're a terrible 3-point shooting team. Other than Amude, you really can't rely on anybody. And ultimately, I think Baylor's got the experience and they've got the guard play to get it done. And then we got Villanova Duke, and I think Duke's going to have too much size here. So we're going to have Baylor Duke in the Elite Eight, and we got Gonzaga Purdue with Gonzaga advancing. And this is a tough one because I do think that I don't think Duke is as – I don't think they're the 7th best team in the country. They've got a couple of really good wins in the non-conference, but you look at some of their losses in ACC play, like the ACC conference is not good this year, and yet they've lost to UNC at home, Miami at home, Virginia at home, and then now I believe they lost at Ohio State, and then I think and at Florida State. Now, granted, Florida State didn't have every single player injured on their team at that point, but then losing to Virginia Tech tonight. Oh man, I think we go Baylor on this one. I think Baylor's going to end the reign. I just don't trust Duke defensively, and their offense is really good. Baylor's defense is pretty solid, but I think Baylor's offense and their guards would be able to get free. If Virginia Tech's guards have got open for this many threes tonight against Duke, I think Baylor's guards will be able to have the same success. So then we got Baylor Gonzaga rematch, and I'm going Gonzaga in this one. I think the physicality Baylor uses could affect Gonzaga kind of like last year, but they don't ultimately have the playmakers that they did last year, whereas Gonzaga is pretty comparable, in my opinion. Not necessarily the same, but I think they're pretty good still. So Gonzaga over Baylor. Then we have Kansas here. I think that's a no-brainer. I like how Creighton's playing. I also like how Memphis is playing. I think defense in this instance I think Memphis's defense is going to overwhelm Creighton, and they'll advance. Memphis is not going to make it easy for Kansas, but that'll be an interesting one. I'm going South Dakota State here. I think South Dakota State's an upset team no matter who they play, no matter what 5 seed they play. I'm going to pick them in my bracket, to be honest. I just like how they play. All the guys can shoot the 3. Baylor Shireman, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's one of the most awkward looking players in terms of how he plays the game, but he is very impressive. Shoots 47% from 3, and he shoots a lot of 3s, so it's very impressive to watch him play. Then we got Chattanooga Providence. I'm going again with Chattanooga in this one. I think Providence has been overrated a lot of the year. I think they've gotten lucky with some of their games, and not that they're not good, but they rely too much on shooting a 3 ball at times when they're really not a good 3-point shooting team overall. And so this is normally what I say you don't do, but in this instance it kind of worked out. And then we got Alabama, Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's playing really well right now, but usually it's hard to see. I don't know. I think Alabama ultimately will win that one. Alabama's struggling, but maybe this extra time off kind of gets them refocused. So we got Wisconsin, Princeton. Should be a low-scoring game. Then now this one should be a low-scoring game as well. Boise State, Marquette, going to go Boise State. Then we got Kentucky. And I think ultimately Kansas will get it done. Memphis is going to make it tough. Like they're gonna really make the game look ugly. But I think Kansas will get it done. And then I'd like South Dakota. I like South Dakota State there. Chattanooga plays really good defense. Actually, you know what? Let's go Chattanooga. I think ultimately Chattanooga is going to get that done. Then we got Alabama, Wisconsin. Let's go Wisconsin. Actually, I'm going to go Alabama. Alabama's got some crazy wins this year, and I just think they're going to be able to get it done. And then we're going to have a rematch of Alabama-Kentucky, which Kentucky will get this one done. And then we're going to have the De Silva playing his ex-team in Kansas, and Kansas will win that one. So we're going to have Kansas-Kentucky rematch. And I think Kansas is playing better than Kentucky right now. And to me, this is based off of how teams are playing right now. And the way David McCormick's playing and Christian Braun and Ochai Agbaji, I think those guys end up getting it done. So Kansas to the Final Four. Now we have Arizona. Oh, and as I said before, I didn't mention this before. The reason why I have Kansas as a 2 seed, let me show you guys this real quick. I don't know if anybody is taking the time to look at this because I think people assume Arizona's the number 2 seed or second number 1 seed. After today, they're going to be 6-3 in quad 1 wins after beating UCLA. Now, 9-0 in quad 2 is good, but they've played 16 of their 34 games. Almost half their games have been in quad 3 and quad 4 because their conference is just bad. The Pac-12 is bad. There's no other way to put it around it. Outside of your 3 main teams, which USC is even, like, how good is USC really? I mean, they've played almost 20 of their games now in quad 3 and 4. But Arizona doesn't have much on their resume other than playing UCLA 3 times, USC twice. They did get a win at Illinois, which is really big, a neutral site win against Michigan, and lost to Tennessee. So I think if you look here at Kansas, I think Kansas with 20 quad 1 and quad 2 wins has a great case to be the number 2 overall seed. You could actually even make a case for Baylor being the number 3 overall seed over Arizona. You could definitely make a case for that. Just based truly or solely on resume, strength of schedule, that kind of stuff. Also look here, average net wins, meaning what is the net ranking of the teams you beat and averaging it out. Arizona's is pretty high. Now, the reason why Kentucky's is where it's at because their non-conference schedule is really bad other than playing at Kansas. So that's part of the reason. And then you even look at the net losses for Arizona. That's pretty high. Like Houston's is higher because of the conference they play in. But that's the highest in the top 10 other than Houston. So that's why I decided to go that way. So I think ultimately the analytics will play that out. Now, Michigan State, San Francisco. I haven't watched San Francisco too much, to be honest. I think Michigan State's playing better, so I'm going Michigan State. Then we got St. Mary's over Rutgers or Texas A&M. St. Mary's is a tough team to play against because they just annoy the heck out of you. So then I'm going Illinois. Vermont's not going to make that one easy, though. And then USC. I'm going Wyoming over USC. I'm just not a big fan of USC this year. And then Montana State's pretty good. Texas Tech with their defense will get by them. Then we got Ohio State, Miami. I don't like how Ohio State's playing right now, but I think Miami being in the ACC, we don't fully know how good they are, so I'm going to take Ohio State. And then we got Auburn. So then up here, I got Arizona over Michigan State. And the rematch of Illinois over Arizona. And then we've got Wyoming and Texas Tech, which go Texas Tech, and then Auburn over Ohio State, but I think it'll be close. And then I think Illinois is going to beat Arizona this time. Now the question is, which Illinois shows up? Does the good Trent Frazier and Andre Plummer show up? If Illinois' guards show up and are shooting the ball, they could win a national championship with having Kofi Cockburn and how they play. Now, defensively, sometimes they slack off a little bit, but it's a matter of are they able to shoot the ball and which guards are showing up. Then I think Texas Tech's going to take out Auburn, and then I've got Illinois beating Tech going to the finals against Kansas, and then Kansas beating Illinois, and it'd be Gonzaga, Gonzaga, Kansas in the final with Gonzaga winning and getting their first national championship. So, based off my bracket projection, that's what I have. Love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Because remember, at the end of the day, this is just projections. This is me making picks based on what I believe from watching a lot of basketball this year. And, everybody's got their own opinions. And that's one great thing about the NCAA tournament is everything will play out. And basketball is such an unpredictable sport a lot of times that we're going to make wrong picks. And I could be totally wrong with all these picks, but at the end of the day, it's fun to do. And so, as I said, I'd love to hear your comments. And thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your day.